It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andy Grabner and Brian Wilson. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pure Performance. My name is Andy Grabner, and as always, I have with me my co-host, Brian Wilson. Brian, how are you doing today?
Andy, you have an interesting voice today. What's wrong with you? It's an interesting start. See, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
You're trying to make things even funnier than they typically are, huh?
Even funnier than they typically, because they're usually so rollickingly funny. I get offers from clowns to join circus and run away from everything. But anyway, we have been very busy lately. So as you can tell, my mind isn't all here right now even. So let's get into it. How are you, Andy?
Very good.
We'll assume our names back. So I'll be Brian again now. Yeah. It was fun being you for a few moments.
Andy. Right. Yeah. And it's been fun being you for a while, thinking that I'm in Denver, Colorado, and not in Linz, Austria, allowing me to travel at least virtually. No, but Brian, the cool thing about today's session, maybe we always have cool guests, but today is really great because we have kind of a great continuation of the topic we had at the last episode, right? Where we had Andrea Holl, Agile coach at Dynatrace, talking about and giving us some insights on Agile transformation stories, approaches, different scaled Agile frameworks, and how she kind of started helping Dynatrace to change. And she gave us some insights into the process that they took. I remember the Let's Rock Agile community that they built and so on and so forth. But then we said, this is great. We got a lot of great theoretical background and some insights, but really what would be interesting now is to hear how does this really then translate to the day-to-day work of the Dynatrace engineering team.
Yeah, this reminds me of when we had Bernd and I think it was Anita on talking about the Agile, not the Agile, but the DevOps transformation. So it should be fun.
Exactly, yeah, because we had Bernd kind of saying, this is from his perspective, from kind of the leadership, and then Anita told us her story from actually, in the DevOps team on our ACE team. So without further ado, without brabbling around, let's introduce Stefan Frandl to the podcast. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks a lot, Andy. Thanks a lot, Brian. Cool to be here.
Yeah. Hey, Stefan, maybe Brian, you want to ask him. Like, he's been an old-timer almost.
Yeah. So as Andy mentioned, you're an old-timer, so I guess you're walking around with a cane and all. No, but you're, in all seriousness, you're one of the very, very early employees as well, right? We like one of the, you said, I think before we joined, you have like a single-digit employee ID or something?
At least I had one, yeah. That's right.
Yes, and I bet you back then you just had Stefan as your email address, right? You didn't have to have a last name or anything.
Yeah, but there are a lot of Stefans in Austria, so yeah. Already had a second one at this time.
Yeah, so now I'm just amazed too, because I first interacted with Dynatrace in 2009 as a customer. So, and I know you go back to even before then, obviously as an employee. So it's always just amazing to when I meet some of you folks. Obviously, a shout out to Reini, who I've known since I think my second week of working at Dynatrace. So it's always an extreme pleasure to have guests on like yourself who've seen it all, really.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, and talking about seen it all, Stefan, can you, for those people that don't know you, can you give a quick background on yourself and especially your, I think, last 15 years at Dynatrace, but maybe just a little bit like what's your role right now, and maybe give us some background in where you started and then we dive into the topic on what has changed over the years.
Sure. So currently I'm a development director here at Dynatrace, responsible for two rather big areas. On the one hand, the whole code level end-to-end topic with the one agent, and but also with the server-side correlation, service detection, and also the UI. And I'm also responsible for engineering productivity, and that's also quite a big part of my history at Dynatrace. So everything that is about continuous integration, continuous delivery, and the whole Dynatrace lab, that's pretty much everything that I'm responsible for and my people are working on.
It's amazing. I mean, especially, first of all, technology-wise, you are the code level end-to-end tracing, like everything that we know and love around PurePath. But then also the things that people, from a customer perspective, not see is the engineering productivity, making sure that our engineers are actually, they have the tools so that they can stay productive. And I remember the two of us, we've worked over the years together on figuring out how we can make things faster, better, automated. I mean, you did these things, but you always kind of fed me some information that I could then use in the blog post. So thank you for that. That was really good.
At least I'm trying to. So yeah, that's a key thing for us.
Yeah.
So we need to automate. We need to try to use what we have as good as possible, and be fast, be scalable, and that's also part of the growth story.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like a very low pressure job.
Yes, of course.
So maybe coming through the growth story, can you give a quick overview for people that may not be aware of the history of Dynatrace? As you started in the early days, how do you see like maybe a certain, let's say, phases of growth, and like through the number, I don't know, of people, through the number of products, through the number of features? Can you give us a little overview?
Yes. So we started in a little flat in Linz with a small group. So I think I had a one-digit employee number back then, and it was like crazy, because if you think of startup mentality, everyone was aiming or having the same goal and trying to go in the same direction. So that was from a spirit that was really a great time. And then we evolved, we grew, and you saw that until we were around 150 people, everything worked fine. So everyone did know who is responsible for what, and that made it easy. So there was no problem with working together. There was no problem with handing over, for example, or bringing a feature to the end, or an end-to-end overview of a feature. So everyone knew what is the goal of that feature, how can we help our customers with that, and that made it pretty easy to work together. Mm-hmm. But that was until we were 150 people around that.
Mm-hmm. So that means back then, I think that's actually an interesting number, 150. So you still know people, and I think do you remember back then we were still a single development lab, pretty much, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, that also made it pretty easy. So you could just step into an office and ask someone and talk to him or her. So it wasn't a problem at all. And therefore, the information flew very, very flawless. And it was just easy to get all people on board if you kicked off a new feature, and have everyone working on the same thing and have the same understanding on all the sides.
Mm-hmm. So now what was the next phase after 150? How did that go on?
So then we grew to around 300, got new labs there. So we got Gdansk and Detroit into our development team. And of course, that made things different. It was pretty interesting in collaboration, because if you're not used to that, it's pretty hard to learn at the very beginning. Of course, also get a common understanding, get to know the different cultures, and also see how working together could work in the end, or could work out in the end. That was an interesting process, and of course, that took quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember, and I think I kind of remember these times when, especially you mentioned Gdansk, where we had, and I think we still have it to this day, that we started having a constant people exchange, right? So people from Gdansk, from Poland, come into Austria, and also the other way around. So at least people get to know each other and kind of work together for a while, because there's still obviously this human thing, right? You need to learn, get to know the person, also from a private perspective. If in the evening you can go out for a drink or something like this, and I mean, obviously now in COVID times we don't do this, but
I was
in
just going to say,
general,
what's going out? What is going out for a drink? I don't get that.
Yeah.
That's just a very, very important part. Get to know the people that you're working with. Get them also to know on the private side. So that's also very, very interesting. And yeah, you still get the different relationship. You can more or less better judge what the other person wants from you if you have met him or her already once. And yeah, that really helps. So personal relationship, seeing people, talking to them in person, face to face, that makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to sidetrack too much here, but the one thing that really strikes me, Andy, before we started this, I was just talking about how, although I complain about the issues we usually have recording, just the fact that we can do these is quite amazing. But when you think about going back to the beginning of Dynatrace, that was, the type of APM before that was pretty lousy, or I shouldn't say lousy. It was great for when it was developed. It was first gen, right? But when you look at what our customers, even what us in the field, like demand and expect out of platforms like this, it's amazing that it's all even there, right? When if someone like Stefan, who's been working on building all these things into it so that it's what people expect, right? People take for granted that traces are going to connect tier to tier, right? People who are doing homegrown observability, open trace and things like that, they're learning the hard way how hard these things are to do. But all these pieces, you turn on an APM tool, and there are certain things that everyone just expects to happen, which all had to be built. And to me, I'm just thinking as Stefan is talking, like, yeah, he was part of the teams that had to like build all this and envision it. It's just crazy, 15 years later or so. So it's just, yeah.
That's why if we would be post-COVID or not in COVID and we would be together, you would buy him a beer now. That's
I
basically
would.
what it
I would
be.
buy. I would buy you 2 beers, Stefan.
Okay.
2. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're, or when you will be in Linz again after COVID, I will remind you of that. Right?
Yes. Someday I'll get there. I've never been there in my whole career here. But anyway, let's not. Yeah, well, I have a daughter with a seizure disorder, and in the earlier days, it was impossible for me to travel like that. And as time went on, it just, we do less travel for SEs to Linz. But back when I first started with Dynatrace, it was more common. So I think I might have lost my opportunity, but we'll see. We'll have to find some way post-COVID.
Yeah.
I want to go to the Falco Shrine.
Yeah. Coming back to the growth. So 300 people. That was the next phase. What about anything changed after that?
Yeah. So the good thing, or the thing that helped us there was that we started obviously with Dynatrace. So there were people working still on AppMon, but a group of people started on Dynatrace, and that helped a little bit, or quite a bit, to be honest, just to separate the focus, and having again 2 small groups in the end. So that was really, really helpful if you look at it from the today's perspective.
Yeah. So for people that may not know the history, so based until a certain point in time, our main product was what is now called Dynatrace AppMon, the tool that we've also already kind of end-of-lifed. But at some point, we incubated kind of a startup within Dynatrace, which is now the Dynatrace software intelligence platform that everybody knows. And that's obviously great to know, because we, as you said, right, separating the teams, making these teams kind of, or at least the new teams smaller, and also learning, I guess, some new approaches to delivery or to development.
Yeah, sure. We changed the model completely, just from on-premise to a SaaS business and to continuous delivery. Instead of having 2 releases a year, we're releasing every 2 weeks. So that's a game changer. And of course, we had to learn quite some stuff there. Mm-hmm. How to build software, and how to build software for 2 week sprints and 2 weeks release cycles, and how to do everything around that to get really good quality out there.
Yeah. So then let me ask you a question. I mean, as of today, I think Andrea said it last week when we recorded, we're about 800 engineers, plus or minus, or give and take, across many different labs. Why was it necessary to go through yet another kind of, it seems, bigger effort to change? I'm not sure how big the effort is, but why is this current iteration? Why was Andrea and others brought on board to figure out how we need to change? What was the problem from your perspective?
So the biggest problem was people didn't know each other anymore, so they didn't know who is responsible for what. And it started slowly to slow down the whole development process, meaning you're starting a feature in one team, and the other team that should then work or continue to work on that to get it finished and end-to-end finished has other priorities, because they may be working with a different product management team, they're working with different other things, and have their own priorities and their own features they are working on. So you just had things that were done on one part. So meaning, if you think of agent, server, and UI, we had quite some situations where we were done on the agent side for a few sprints already, but not having any time on the server side to work on that, to, for example, add new things for service detection or stuff like that, to make the feature end-to-end helpful for our customers.
Mm-hmm. So and that means go ahead.
And that was, of course, a big roadblock. So you're slowing down, even if you have a lot of people working on it.
Yeah. So basically you had, because of the team structure back then, I guess, right? Agent and then server, as you said, and UI, because you separated like this. And if you look at the feature end-to-end that involves, at least these 3 major teams, and one team starts and then they are finished, and you have a lot of, let's say, half-ready features lying around just waiting to be continued by another team, but that team had other priorities, and therefore you have a lot of half-finished feature and half-finished work. I mean, I guess if I understand this correctly.
Yeah, because if you're, for example, going back to that agent example, if you think of you did your code changes half a year ago, and now it's processed on the server side, and requirements have changed, so you need to go back to that code and change it or adapt it to the new requirements, or you're just getting bugs in there for code that you have written half a year ago. That's all just not really big fun.
Yeah.
So it's also like part of motivation and motivating people to have features end-to-end out there, see them working, get the feedback there. And that was also a big thing that we were missing.
Mm-hmm. And I think this must be a problem for many organizations, especially that are growing and that are moving also to more distributed systems, where you have all of a sudden maybe 10 teams here that are working on 10 microservices in that area, then other teams there on some other things. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of organizations that grow will run into similar issues then, right? I mean, it makes sense if you don't change.
Yeah, and that's that was one of the main reasons why we needed another change. And that's something that I love at Dynatrace, that we are always changing and always think about how can we optimize there. And that's a very, very cool part of Dynatrace, that you can always start the change, try things out, and if that works, so we can roll it out. So that's really a very, very nice possibility here at Dynatrace.
Mm-hmm. So now fill us in. What did you change then? How did you get a handle on this handover hell, or whatever you want to call it?
So basically, it was there were multiple things that we had to change. So one thing was we had team leads back then, and a team lead was more or less a Swiss Army knife. So doing everything that is from, of course, working with people, developing people, but also being more or less the PO of the team, being the agile advocate of the team, and also being an engineer. So having 4 roles on his shoulder. And that was, of course, something that works to some extent. And if people are extremely good, then that works out. But if you just have, for example, things or areas where you're good in, you may focus on them. So that means maybe one team lead is more focusing on the growth of the people. The other team lead is more focusing on the content, on the PO things. So depending on where the favors are there, it might look different from team to team.
Mm-hmm.
And of
I
course,
guess it's also just natural, right? It's also natural that every human being is obviously focusing on their strengths, and therefore you will automatically have different permutations.
And I said that's a big part of having a lot of responsibilities on one person, and also having all the different roles combined into one. That's a thing where we see right now that splitting up that helps a lot. So we went ahead there and thought about how can that look like. Of course, as said, we just needed to recognize that a team lead is having all those 4 roles. And as soon as that was obvious that this is overloading people, so we just thought how to split it up, and came up with the model of having a team captain. So that is the one guy who is still playing there, but is also more or less the leader of the group. And then having someone who is focusing on the content, meaning really focusing on the stories, focusing on the quality of the stories, having a definition of ready, a definition of done, having an end-to-end understanding what that really means, so that we make sure that not stories like one-liners where the content is something like as discussed, which we had, is going into a sprint. Because we had that situations, to be honest, where people were working on stuff that they didn't know what they are working for there. So what does that mean in the end? For which kind of feature are we working there? And of course, that leads to not optimal results there. And when someone is focusing on that, then this really driving stories and the quality in there, then this changes. So the feedback until now was like, the quality of the stories is way better. The backlog is like clean, really clean. And everyone knows what are the topics that we are working on. Why are we doing that end to end? And also knows what are our focus points for the next months.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So basically taking all the lessons learned from an overloaded team lead and splitting the individual tasks into individual roles, team captain, PO. Anything else? Anybody else that is in that involved now?
So some teams are having an agile advocate in the team. who is responsible for the retrospective and also for all the agile processes, making sure that things like a retrospective is really done, and also there are follow-ups on the retrospective items, which is also very important. So that also helps and supports the PO and also the team captain. But that's not in each and every team. And as you have said, there is also Andrea and the whole group of the Agile Competence Center that is helping us there and supporting us.
Yeah. So that's cool. So that means that. Go ahead, Brian, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just, a little bit of a change of topic, so go on, Andy.
No, I was just, maybe final thought. That means Andrea and her team, they're kind of defining some best practices around how agile should be done. What are the processes? What are the building blocks? I think that's what she said. And then you have the individual advocates that are then injected into the teams and really help them with executing these agile processes and obviously helping running the meetings, running the retrospectives, and so on. That's great to know. Perfect.
What also was very interesting is how we started that, because if you think of, that's really a huge change. So it's not like a small piece, but a rather huge one. So I started with my teams going with at first talking with the team captains, the team leads back then, just to make sure that they understand what we are doing and why we are trying to do that. And then talking to each and every single team, explaining what we want to do, explaining the roles, and then also trying to find people who want to take those roles and who want to be responsible for specific tasks and areas there. And of course, that was interesting because we didn't have for sure everything perfectly designed and defined back then. So we just needed to learn a lot and need to be flexible. And that was great to see my teams just being very open to that change, because they said it's a big change, and that was really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask,
now,
some of these changes. Yes, now, Brian. Some of these changes, when you look at the numbers and the size of the teams, when the team is smaller, changes are going to be easier to implement. But when you get to teams with, I think you were saying up to like 700 or so, how much more difficult is it to change, right? Because one of the things that you all have been really great at from both the product point of view as well as the internal processes point of view is adapting and modifying as you go to fit the needs. But I imagine for any organization, the larger they get, the more difficult changing internally is. And not to spend too much time on that, but what are those challenges like? And is this something that's easy to overcome if you just shift the way you think about it?
Yeah, the challenges obviously are that everyone has or should understand and should be on board if you're doing such a change, to inform everyone about it, to convince everyone that this absolutely makes sense is of course a lot of work, and you have to run quite some meetings to make sure that everyone is understanding what you want to achieve and how this change will also affect the daily work. So there were a lot of questions around that. And so it was really, really important that every dev director, so we have multiple dev directors for those 700 people, is working with the teams, trying to support them as good as possible, trying to make them understand what we are going to do and how we're going to do it. And of course, like we always do at Dynatrace, we had a small incubator. So I was starting with my teams, and as soon as this was successful, so I also just started with a few teams in my group. But as soon as this was successful, I rolled it out to the whole group, and then other areas or other dev directors also saw, that perfectly makes sense. People are getting a boost there. And of course, it's a big chance, also for those other people who were in the team, didn't have a team lead role, but wanted to do more than development, so wanted to focus on different other areas. So now this was, of course, a big chance for everyone there.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Hey, Stefan, so it makes sense that you obviously split the one role into multiple to focus on the individual things that had to be done. But this doesn't really solve the problem of you have multiple teams that you now need to coordinate. How did you solve that problem?
Right. So we also introduced another new role there. So in the very beginning or in the last years, we worked with so-called dev leads. So I was also one of the dev leads back then who had basically multiple roles. So on the one hand, the role being responsible end-to-end for features and make them work end-to-end, but also being responsible for a larger group of people. And that was also split now into two roles. So there is the development director who is responsible for the people, for the growth in the teams, but also for other organizational tasks there. And there is a lead product engineer. The lead product engineer is more or less coordinating the different POs in the different teams. So what we are doing right now is we're starting with product management. Product management is defining key themes for a year, for example, or half a year. And out of those key themes, we are creating different value increments, making sure that those value increments are really something that we can deliver and that is having or giving our customers advantage. And out of those value increments, the lead product engineer together with the POs of the team is then creating development epics and is then breaking that down to stories together with the team. And that helps a lot just to get the end-to-end focus and also to have a good estimate on how long things will take there.
Mm-hmm. That is pretty cool. So if I can reiterate key themes, and around Dynatrace solutions, I think, right? If you think about those people that know Dynatrace, let's take the cloud automation solution. Then you put it into product epics. Could you give me an example on product epic? What that would be?
That could be, for example, memory allocation profiling. That was a product epic.
Cool.
So,
yeah. And then a value increment would be just to walk through the example, because that's really cool. I mean, I like the structure, but just if we maybe have one example also for especially Dynatrace customers that kind of then can relate to this, how we split this up internally.
Yeah, then of course this consists of multiple steps. So, for example, getting the raw data from the agent to the server and into the UI, getting for example allocation count into the UI could be one first step there or one value increment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Very nice. So, I mean, if what's interesting now, so basically you had two things where you were splitting two overloaded roles into multiple roles so they can focus on individual tasks that on its own are very important. Obviously, you can then put in people that are really more dedicated to these roles or they maybe have more experience or more interest in doing these things. So splitting the team leads into team captain, PO, and agile coach or advocate, and then splitting the dev lead into dev director and lead product engineer, and then using the key themes, the product epics, the value increments, the dev epics, and the story to then actually then organize the work that needs to be done. Really cool. Stefan, so this is the current, obviously, iteration of this, agile improvement. Can you tell us a little bit about what has changed so far? So maybe, immediate benefits or benefits we've seen so far?
Yeah. So there is, of course, speed. speed has changed, so we are way faster in releasing new features, in getting new things into the product, and have that end-to-end really covered there. That's a perfect thing. Of course, also the end-to-end understanding in the team is now way bigger. So we know what needs to be done to get it into the product, who needs to be approached there, who needs to work together. That is also really cool. Of course, there are a lot of people have changed their roles or have now new roles there, like being a product owner, for example. And that was a big chance for a lot of people there to drive topics to grow in their personal role.
And now let me ask you why. I mean, I assume it's not just you that drove that change, but what motivated you to initiate that change? Because there might be listeners now that say, yes, we have also grown beyond the point where the current system feels it's like stuck or it's not efficient anymore. Can you give any recommendations to people that feel like they need to change and how to change it? Like what motivated you to step up? Because I don't think it was your initial role to do this, to be the constant change agent, unless it was. So maybe you can just give some insights and guidance to other people.
So no, it wasn't my role, and I'm not the only one who was working on that. So back then I was going with my boss, Alex, so the VP of development, to San Francisco, visiting different other companies just to see how they are working. And because we felt both that, somehow we need to change, because we didn't move that fast, although we added people there. So we needed to change something. And we spoke with someone at Facebook. We spoke with people at Google. We spoke with people at Slack, and Slack was pretty similar from the size and also the locations, the lab locations, to Dynatrace. And there we got some ideas how they are splitting up the work, which kind of roles are involved there, and that initiated that change. So on the way back from San Francisco, we discussed about team leads and how many things they have to do, and also being always the Swiss Army knife, having always that kind of pressure that you, on the one hand, being responsible for the people, but also being responsible for delivering features. There the idea just started.
Mm-hmm. That is cool. I remember actually now, was it 2 years ago already, that trip when you talked about this? Yeah.
I think it's 2 years now, yeah.
I didn't even know that was possible. Like, just go to other companies and pick their brain on how they do things. That's cool that they share. I mean, it makes sense since everyone shares everything else. But when, the idea of like, hey, we're from company X, can we come? What did you do? Go actually observe, or you just met with them and they discussed with you? What does that even look like?
So we had good luck. We had Andy. So Andy was really helping us to get contacts in there for Facebook, and for Google I had my own contacts, and Slack was like a surprise. So we just said, yeah, we are using Slack, so maybe talk to someone there from development, and we were lucky and got someone talking to us, and that was pretty helpful. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like they have a program that you can reach out to and go and say like, hey, can we get this? You just happen to have some contacts, and you made them work. That's of course with Andy involved. As soon as anyone sees them out on the salsa dance floor, they're like, hey, yeah, come on, we're sold.
Right, it's melting away.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, of course. No, but I mean, to this point, I think there's obviously, there are a lot of organizations that talk openly about, I think, what they have done. Like if you think about Spotify, they've been very vocal about it in the beginning. And I'm pretty sure if people are now listening in and say, okay, what can we do? How can we learn? And which company should we go to? I think a lot of organizations have blog posts or talk on podcasts, and then just reaching out to these people via LinkedIn if you don't know them yet. Or like Stefan, I assume people that are now listening in, they may want to reach out to you and say, hey, can we sit down and learn more? So I hope at least if this happens that you will be open and kind of continue sharing that favor.
Sure, I'm happy to share what we have, what we're going through and how we did that change. And of course, I would be happy to share that experience.
And reminder to everybody, a beer or two goes a long way. Right?
Stefan, is this iteration, are you done with this current iteration? Is this rolled out and implemented kind of across Dynatrace Engineering?
So I think we are pretty far. We are not through that at the moment. So we did change a lot, and as this is very natural, the team needs to digest that, right? Mm-hmm. So we are still in the digesting there, but it works pretty nice, and I think that is a good step, and that won't be the last change we are doing, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to take small steps and let the team digest it, and then maybe there will be a next iteration.
Yeah, well, especially with the constant growth, right? We're still hiring like crazy, even through COVID. I mean, I see Gabi, my wife, in the onboardings that she does every month, and there's still always new people that where she tells her story about her team, right? Because in the onboardings we introduce all the teams, and it's amazing how many people we hire and how we grow still, and I'm sure that's going to continue. So I guess naturally there will be at some point a need to think about the next iteration. Stefan, is there kind of concluding to this, any other things that you wanted to make sure people know about our transformation, and also what might be fruitful and useful for their transformation as well?
Yeah, as said, I think you need to just try things out. You must be allowed to fail as well. So trying out something in a smaller group, and if you see that it's successful, then roll it out to the bigger or to the larger group. That was a very, very good approach, and I think that's something. If you think of a change, this is something that you can try, and that's the way I love to do new things or try out new things, and I think that did work out quite well so far.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Really cool. And it's I think one of the things that amazes me so much about Dynatrace is that just looking at you, that you are one of the early employees, and after 15 years you're still here and you're still motivated and you're still trying to make our work life a better place, and obviously the product better for our customers. And there's so many like you that were there from the beginning and are still there and still doing, like starting obviously with Bernd, our founder, and many others, like Brian mentioned Reini, who has been there for a long, long time. Christian, there's so many people that just still love what we do here, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it's a big part of that is the possibilities that we have and the freedom that we have to initiate change, to do constant change, but also the dozens or thousands of different technologies that we're supporting. So you can learn every day something new, and that is just amazing. So I still had touch points with the mainframe, as well as JavaScript and all the different languages. Of course, Kubernetes. So yeah, it's like you can learn every day something new, and if you want to, you can look into different technologies, and that's the cool thing about Dynatrace.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. I think, Stefan, we we should have you back, when the next iteration starts. Or obviously, you are also working on a lot of other cool things within the company, a lot of great technologies. I know you're also leading and guiding people through some of the master thesis and that's some research projects. So I'm pretty sure while this was the first time, it was not the last time that we have you on one of our podcasts. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for hosting that, and thanks a lot for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming on. And if any of our listeners have any questions, comments, you can reach us at pure_DT on Twitter, or you can send us an email at pureperformance@dynatrace.com. Stefan, thanks a lot for being on and just for doing all the awesome things you do. We all really appreciate it, and I'm sure all of our Dynatrace customers appreciate it, even though they probably have no idea you're behind the scenes working on all this stuff diligently. But thanks to you and the entire development team and the R&D and everything that goes on. So really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.